All right, welcome to week 3. And what I'm going to be doing tonight is going to be talking about campaign cohesiveness and such things as that. It's week 3, so, we got to get caught up. If there's anything that's, not done, got to get it caught up. That's a very important thing. So I mentioned that. I also mentioned that I am available in Blackboard on Wednesday, Friday, and Saturday. Wednesday and Saturday from 7 o'clock until 11 on Wednesday, and 7 o'clock until 12 on Saturday. And on Friday, I'm available from, here she is. How you doing?
Hello.
Glad you could make it. It's wonderful to have you here.
I have an alarm set nowadays.
Great. So how's it going? Are you okay? I see you got caught up a little bit. Did you see my comments?
Yes, and I thank you for being encouraged with that.
No, you did fine. There was one thing I wasn't entirely, one of your questions, I couldn't say it was 100% correct. So what I did was I gave you the best I could on it, and you take a look at what the correct answer was. Do you want to go over that real quickly?
Sure.
Yeah, sure. Let me go to the grades. Hold on. Let me do that. Let me go to, I don't know what I wrote at this point. I know I wrote something.
Yeah, I need to do the discussion.
Here we go. More details. Let's see what we got here. Yeah, I distinctly remember this. And I felt bad because it was like, wasn't quite right. So, and actually,
45 of 50, I'm good with.
Yeah, look what I got here. This is, I didn't really take off the 20 points I was supposed to take off here. So.
But thank you.
That's fine. So let's go here and let's find the question so I can get to it. Good choices, happy sadness, that's fine. Defined advertising, blah, blah, blah. Good assessment, both printing and advertising. Hold on, let me see. Okay, you have a good grasp of that one. That wasn't the question. Integrated, I think it was this,
IBP.
Yeah, integrated brand. Okay, so check it out. Integrated brand promotion, IBP, is a holistic method of coordinating your messaging and your value proposition across all elements of the marketing mix. It is the coordination of message across all media used in the advertising product. Your answer suggests many promotions when one single holistic promotion is required. That's what I took away from your answer. So again, what we're doing here, and it really goes back to tonight, what we're talking about, and that's campaign cohesiveness, is how do we employ this method, this campaign cohesiveness, integrated brand promotional idea across all the different things that you are going to produce. In your case, remind me, Casey, you're going to do a brochure, no, EPUB, right?
Right.
All right, so you can do an EPUB. Oh, by the way, Casey.
I was thinking about, for my extra one, doing a postcard.
You can do a postcard, that's fine. Just keep in mind that when you do the EPUB, you could set it up, maybe if you could come up with one article and the rest of them could be just dummy articles. In other words, you use dummy type for it. You come up with a concept for your different articles for your EPUB, and and you could use positioning text, kind of text that you use in InDesign when you don't have actual copy.
Yeah,
that would be fine to do that. Just make it look like a publication. As a matter of fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to come up with this right now. This is I'm going to show you this because I'm working on it right now. But let me just make note of the number I'm at. I'm at 38. Hold on. 38. Okay. This is actually, oops, I got the wrong thing. This is actually what I would consider to be an EPUB. What it is basically, oh, and by the way, I'm going to shut this thing off because it's in the way. Okay.
Yeah.
So what I got here is my thesis paper. This is my final thesis paper. Go to the view menu and let's go to screen mode preview. Okay, so this is my thesis paper, And that's the cover. And then inside here, I think I mentioned this to you last week, I have an index, right?
Yeah, and they're all interactive.
Yeah, and they're all going to be interactive. Now, again, you could do that. It'd be very nice. Then, of course, there's all the different articles. And what are these articles? Each course that I took, and this particular one, this course goes back to one called Research. And I had like about 12 different things that I had to do. So each one of these is the paperwork or the actual work that I did. Like you can see here, it's talking about prosthodontists, them, and then there it's more about Dr. John. There's his website. So I'm talking about him in this. And then we move on to where I'm talking about social, the social
media.
Right. And in this is all about the social media that he has and the potential that he has for using social media. So that's what's going on in here. And this goes just on and on from topic to topic. And there's approximately right now 75 pages. And I just did this one tonight, which is...
I was going to say, it's getting bigger since the last time I saw it.
Well, this is it. This is the end of it, because I spoke to John less than an hour ago, who's telling me that their goal is to finish up the final production of the video by the end of the night. And hopefully that'll happen. I got my fingers crossed on it, because if that happens, I can then embed it into this and I can submit it tomorrow or the next day, which would be great.
Woo.
Yeah, and then I've literally done everything that I need to do for my master's degree. Plus, I can then show you. I can let you take a look at a little bit of this production that we did. It's amazing. I mean, this thing turned out to be something that I was going to do in Camtasia and Zoom. And it moved from that into us meeting with John's cousin, who turns out to be a photographer and a videographer. So we, got him involved, and now he's actually the one that's doing the production instead of me. And his level of production is much greater than my level of production. So it's going to be a beautiful... I actually saw this over the weekend. I saw the preliminary, and there were some rough spots they had to iron out, and that's what they did today. They were ironing out those rough spots. And but it looked gorgeous. The thing was just amazingly beautifully done. Really, I'm very proud of the whole effort put into it. So
I think it's beautiful.
Hopefully.
Can I take a minute? I need to talk to my mother real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, I'll be right back. Cancer patient decided he wanted to stay out in the heat too long.
Oh.
So I got him back in the house.
Oh, boy.
But let's go. I'm good.
All right, so what I'm going to be talking to you about tonight is campaign cohesiveness, among other things.
Awesome.
The way they describe it here, the campaign cohesiveness is that's correct. It's an extremely important part of any advertising campaign.
Oh, yes.
And it talks about how to ensure your designs are unique to that format, but consistent across your entire project. It's really more than that, and I am going to go into that shortly, but just to stick with this for a minute, a cohesive designs mean that you have matching color elements throughout such colors as fonts and throughout such as colors, fonts, and images. So basically, what it's saying here is that as a graphic designer, there should be very specific things that you are trying to achieve. Guides, yes. And you will be given guides, or you should be working within your own set guides. One of the things that I'm going to show you tonight is a thing called a branding manual. Now, I don't have a really great branding manual.
I've actually made one.
You have made one. Okay, great.
Yeah, remember we had a class?
Yeah, so you know it. You know it. Great. Yeah. Well, that's when they talk about this concept of cohesive design, when they talk about matching elements with colors, fonts, and images. That's what they're talking about. They're talking about branding. When you use your logo, it should be used a certain way. It should be viewed a certain way. There should be consistency used. It's the same with fonts. You shouldn't be using 10 different kinds of fonts. The only place where... well, go ahead.
The only font I've been using lately is Georgia. Okay.
Well, keep in mind that when you do print, print tends to like... I'm not exactly sure why this is. I think it's just the way the material works. Print tends to like serif fonts. When you're working on projects in that are going to be used in some manner of print. You tend to use serif fonts for that. For some strange reason, the online and when you're working on a computer in any way, shape, or form, they tend to go to a sans serif font. That always seems to work better. So those would be the only two criteria. And if you have a really good branding manual, one of the things that they will do is they will give you instructions as to what they believe are the correct fonts to use in print for your projects and for your online material. I mean, they really go to a large degree with this. Go ahead.
Well, for me, the reason why I chose Georgia was it is a serif font.
Yeah. Well, again, as I say, you might want to come up with something for web, because that would be. I would prefer to see you working with a sans serif font for anything that you're going to be putting, like any kind of EPUBs you probably could use a serif with, so that would be okay. But like if you're going to do advertisements for the web, I would think you'd probably want to try and it kind of depends on how you're going to approach your ad. I mean, if your ad doesn't have a lot of copy in it, you may be fine using a sans serif font, or I mean a serif font.
Well, if you recommend using sans serif font, that's not a problem. I can switch.
Well, I'm just saying what you need to do is consider the concept of branding and how you would brand something.
But I know one thing. I'll stay away from Helvetica.
Yeah, that's fine. I have no problem with that. And
I don't really care for it.
Well, I prefer Myriad Pro, and I use Myriad Pro a lot. And the reason I use Myriad Pro a lot, it's very reliable. I mean, most every computer has, and it also has a lot of different faces within the family itself. So you could actually use a lot of, they could condense, bold condensed, italic bold, all of those different faces. So it's a really nice font that way. But again, I mean, this is all up to you. I want you to have fun doing it. I mean, this is something that really.
Oh, I have been fun doing it, because I sat there and I got Blue Mountain instead of Discovery Island or Red Valley, and I was like, Blue Mountain. So I started doing all the research on it.
Yeah.
And found out that it had been closed down, and I was like, man.
Yeah.
So that's when I started to formulate the grand reopening. Let's bring Blue Mountain back.
That's a great idea.
Because I had an article that I saw in there, and it was talking about this guy who in 2014 went up to the site where Blue Mountain was, and he went down the slopes, and it was in the middle of winter when he did it.
Yeah.
That the whole reason that the entire resort, which was very tiny, by the way, and it was the place for like 30 years,
right?
Because it had the best slope. It was one of the steepest slopes, and it closed down because they didn't get any snow, or they didn't get enough snow to be able to do anything.
Yeah. So and they didn't have other functions that would support it if they weren't going to be snowboarding.
Right, or skiing.
Yeah.
And so, but when he went up there now, 20, 30 years later, the slopes were still there. The lifts were still there. The Poma pole was still there. The Poma Run was still there. The parking lot was still there, and the abandoned lodge. So somebody could literally go in there now.
Pick up where they left off. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a great idea. What I would recommend, one thing I would recommend, that if you're going to do that, make sure that your campaign begins early, because what you want to do is you want to spend time announcing this off season, so that people see it enough times that by the time season comes around, if they're interested in coming to that place, they will give it a try. So what I'm saying is, start your schedule for your advertising earlier than what their season would be. Early as you can.
I was thinking started about summer season.
Yeah.
Start with the August Escape. Or
So you
things
could
like
work in
that.
some kind of a clever promotion where you're talking about summer's here, but it will soon be gone. And well, we'd like you to come and visit the new and improved. I'm not saying those are the words, but that's the general gist of the messaging would be, summer's going to be going soon. And then what are you going to do in the winter? We're here now. We're back, and
Exactly.
come and see how the new and improved, that kind of thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Come spend 4th of July on our trails.
Yeah. Yep.
You know,
Well, I'd say that's definitely worth doing. So that's what I would recommend. You go ahead and do that, and that would probably be a great way to start this off.
and I think my e-publication is going to be an article about bringing Blue Mountain back.
That would be great. And that one, I think you could probably write. Use your imagination. The stuff is there. It's been gone. We've gone over it. We've improved here and there and whatever you think. You put it together as an article. Then, as I say, the rest of it, you could find interesting pictures that talk about different things that have to do with Blue Mountain, and then just pretend that the article. You don't only have to write one article. You don't have to write the entire EPUB. But again, make it look like it's an actual magazine type of a thing, and make it like maybe 4 to 6 pages, and with a couple of with a header, with a nice header that involves the logo, and you know what to do.
Well, I was sitting here while we were talking, scanning through the sans serif fonts.
Yep.
And my favorite's always been Arial.
Mm-hmm.
I also like Verdana.
Okay.
So I don't know. I'm gonna go with either one of those. See which one pops at me better.
That's fine. What you have to realize is that you're the creative person here. Nobody has given you nobody's given you a branding manual. So basically, what I want you to do is I want you to think that somebody has, and I want you to act within the design that you do as if somebody had given you a branding manual. You know what I mean?
I also want to stick within the colors of the logo.
Yeah, absolutely. But then you also have to figure out what colors you would coordinate with the logo, so that you would have a range of color that works. And again, when I say what would work with the color, I'm not saying you have to have 30 colors. You might have 2 or 3 colors that would coordinate with your primary color. Like a secondary and tertiary color that would coordinate with your brand color. They do that. Well, again, what's going to happen is in a little while, I'm going to take you in. I'm going to show you this design document questionnaire, and I'm going to show you this branding manual that I have to show you. And that goes into a little bit later on about cohesiveness, campaign cohesiveness, things that one would do to make sure that you have a cohesive approach that you're working on.
I'll tell you, I had an instructor recently. Other than you're a great instructor. But he was one of these guys that was meticulous and micromanaging about consistency.
Yep.
And his name's Christopher Power.
Yep.
I love Chris Power, man.
Yeah.
But he instilled in me, now all my designs are consistent.
Good. That's what you need. As a matter of fact, if you're a graphic designer and you're working for a company, and the company hands you a branding manual, and you are assigned to do a particular project, by the time you get done designing your project, if you follow the branding manual the proper way, you should be able to put it into a group of 7 other pieces that were produced by different people within the company for different purposes, and it should almost look as if it were coming from one single individual, as if the one artist was doing it. That's the real purpose of a branding manual, to help us to be able to coordinate the creative that we're working on, making sure that it stays within a certain. In other words, they want you to be creative, but they also want you to be disciplined as well. And you have to have a balance of discipline to creative in order for this thing to be properly achieved. This goal of campaign cohesiveness to be achieved properly. So, I mean, I mention this stuff to you because this is very important to me, and I think it's very important to you.
Period.
Huh? Yeah.
It is important to me because I've already had a large client.
Mm-hmm.
And all it was is I had to create a food complimentary coupon card for.
Okay.
And what I did was I used the colors of their logo, and I put the text on it with what they wanted.
All right.
But we had a particular thing that we had to do, and since it's still in production, I can't show people, which drives me nuts.
No, I totally understand. I go through that a lot. When I work with people, I go through that a lot.
Well, it was for the one of the largest Japanese animation conventions in the Southwest.
Great.
And they loved it. Matter of
Great.
fact, what I did was, though, is I put it on a clear plastic business card.
Nice idea.
Because it's harder to copy that.
Nice idea. Very creative. Very creative use of materials. Are you there?
So, yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Well, anyway, this week, what you're going to do is you're going to decide on 2 strategies for your campaign. We talked about strategies, and I think you got a pretty good idea of them from your, I guess it was in your quiz they asked about the strategies, which you brought up, and I think you were fine with them. So you need to focus on at least 2 strategies. And, I mean, it's up to you what you think. We're going to talk more about that in a little bit, but that's ultimately what it is. And for each example, you want to use the same colors, the images, the font styles, obviously. But again, keep in mind it's a bigger picture than that. There's a consistency of layout and consistency of approach is what you really need to do. It should look like that it's all going for the same purpose. It's coming from the same place. Find more advanced strategies that have been successful for companies. I think you've been doing some research. I think you said you were going online doing some research about companies. And I think that's what you need to do. Give examples of the strategies and relate it back to the campaign you're working on. Most important thing is to talk about the strategy in general and then to relate it to how you're going to employ it is really what it comes down to. Okay. Find a citation, use an article that shows examples of successful campaigns. You can find that. You can easily Google successful advertising campaigns, and you know what? Boom, you'll get
That's
ton.
what I've been doing.
Yep. Yeah, you'll get ton. All you have to do is find one article that you like, one thing that relates to your 2 strategies in that article, and then just cite it, and you'll be good to go. Your initial and reply post should work to develop a group understanding of this topic, challenge each other. In other words, what you're going to do for this is I've already put something in. Let's put it that way. I've already put something in. You can go in and you can read what I put into this, and you could challenge it, or you could expand on it, or you could agree with it. But give me a little bit of don't just say, oh, yeah, Bill, I like what you wrote. I agree. You know what I mean? Go a little bit.
Oh, I don't ever do that. Sorry.
No, that's fine. And then what I will do is when you submit your, when you put your discussion in, what I will do, I will go in and I will do the same. And then you can reply to me, and then you'll get the points. I noticed you didn't do one last week, so be careful.
I blanked on it.
Yeah. Don't try to get it done. I'm trying to get you passed here. I want to get you passed. I'll do everything I can to get you passed. But you got to help me. Got to work with me. And then, okay, so basically your main post, 200 words, all right, and you want 2 citations, which I don't think you should have too much of a problem, because I think you could probably go out and find, let's go back for a second to what the main topic's about, strategies. You shouldn't have any trouble finding 2 articles that discover strategies, and just cite each article, and you should be good to go. I don't think you have any problem with that at all. All right.
No, I live on Site Fast.
Yeah. Matter of fact, here's mine. Okay, creating a cohesive advertising strategy. So there's my article. I put that in there. I only cited once, but I'm the instructor, so I don't fail. But at any rate, there's what I wrote. You could go in, and if you look at the bottom, let me see if I write it. What I write at the bottom here. I'd love to hear from you on this. So take a look at what I wrote and tell me what you think, based on what we're talking about. Am I full of hot air or not? Okay.
That works for me.
All right, so the first thing that I want to do is I want to go in and I want to take a look at the 6 steps for creating a cohesive brand identity. I have these links. If you would like, I would be more than happy to put the links up. I'm more happy to put them in an announcement. So you could go in.
If you want to put them in an announcement for me, that's great, because
I
I
will
do
do that.
read the announcements.
I will do that. So right here, so this is 6 steps to creating a cohesive brand identity. So really,
Considering I'm having to make a brand new brand identity for a ski resort that's dead.
yeah. Well,
but I like the logo, so I don't really need to do a new logo for it.
no, unless you were going to change the name, and I wouldn't do that in this case because that's really not what they're asking for. But I think the idea of you doing a reopening, grand reopening, you know what I mean? I think that's actually a very interesting idea, and I think that's a smart move. I think that's something that I would be more than happy to see you work out and see how you handle it. And it also gives you the opportunity to have a direction already predestined for you. In other words, you don't have to go in now and figure out something. You've got it. I mean, we're just basically we're announcing we're back. You know, it's how could that be easier, really? You know.
Yeah, I got to think of colors that are good for skiing, and then I've got to
also balance that with the color that you're using. Balance that with the color you're using. It isn't just a matter of whether it's good with skiing. It's also a question: is it good with the brand? So you got to keep that. It's a two.
Well, I like the blue that they have.
Yeah.
And I'm probably going to go with in a monochrome scheme with that for the winter side. But then I want to use the complementary side to it, the complementary color to it, maybe for the summer events.
Okay.
Because you want bright and, keep the blue in there, because the blue, maybe do a brighter shade of blue, but maybe throw in some orange or some yellow or something like that.
You know what you might find very useful is to go up to Cooler.
Yeah, Cooler's my favorite place.
Yeah, you might go up there and you might take a look at Cooler, because you can generate in Cooler. You can generate a number of different avenues of color from the color that you bring in as a primary color, which would be I would say the color that you're looking for is the color of your logo. And if you're going to build some of this in Illustrator, one of the things you could do is go into Illustrator with your logo and then just basically go to your color.
Play with it.
You could select the color of your logo and go into the color palette, and the color palette will show you the RGB, the CMYK, hexadecimal number, all the different things that you need to know. And then you can go into Cooler and use those numbers to bring up that exact color and then complement it or whatever, you want to do with it.
Well, I've always used Cooler.
Yeah.
Ever since, when I first started school, and they said, "Oh, check this tool out." And I was like, "Oh my God, I love it."
It is. It's very easy. It saves you a lot of time and a lot of trouble. So,
it's in my bookmarks, I've got a lot of design stuff in my bookmarks.
Mm-hmm.
And with Chrome, I've got this sidebar feature.
Okay.
So that I can actually pull up my bookmarks and go, "Oh yeah, I need this," because I'm a Chrome junkie.
Good. Well, all right. So what this is basically talking about here is it's saying that you got to use color. You're going to use more. You're going to use more than just plopping your logo down in a random way. I mean, that's what this is really talking about. And what I do like is they do mention here that it is important to develop a sense of a cohesive brand identity that customers gives the impression of a professional approach to whatever it is you're doing. You're going to look for ways to add consistency to your visual branding. Might be like it seem like a lot of inconsequential details, but you shouldn't feel that way as a designer. No designer should think that anything is of small consequence. When you're a designer, whatever it is that you're working on is of paramount importance.
Oh yeah, and every customer is most important.
That's right. And when you're working on something, your goal should be to put what's necessary into the piece and not what you think you want to put in. If you like the way something looks, but it doesn't add nothing to the mix, then there's really no reason to put it in. You're only complicating.
Like Craig says, design, not decorate.
That's right. So that's what this is basically talking about. And of course, right here, using a consistent color palette is what we were just talking about. Obviously, you have a logo color that would have to become your brand color, your primary brand color. Your designer goal would be to come up with some complementary colors to use. And I think you had the right idea when you were talking about ski resort. What colors work well with skiing? Well, I mean, some bright colors usually can, so that's something you might think about. But also think in terms of complementary for your logo. You don't want to pick colors that are going to smother the primary color, the logo color. You don't want to do that. What you want to do is you want to grab
that
colors
harmony.
that will make them stand out and more exciting. The brand color is your primary and most important color. And that's one thing and again, when I go into when I get up in here, all right, we'll take a look at this shortly. This is the Roto Style Guide that we're going to look at. We'll talk a little bit more about this. All right, so let's see. Yeah, so it's basically, you're the designer, so you don't need to worry about talking with a professional designer. We're talking professional is simply out of the budget.
The closest to professional designer I'd talk to is you.
Yeah, well, at this point, we're working on this together, so you're right.
Yeah.
Now, it says here to stick with a handful of fonts. I would even caution you to not consider a handful. I would consider, if I were you, I would try to consider no more than 2 fonts, maybe 3 at the absolute most. Really, you don't want to create something that becomes a circus of different things. That's what you have to avoid. Now, listen, in certain instances, a circus can be very appropriate, but I don't think in every instance, and I don't think in this particular instance it is. So, and by the way, I just wanted to show you over here. These are ebooks. Okay, that's not it. All right, so anyway, what it says here, it seems fun to choose different fonts for each page, but don't do that. Basically, coordinate with a handful of fonts. I'll focus it even more down to like 2 to 3 fonts maximum, and they should work very well together. And if you really want to, you could easily look up, how to integrate fonts with each other. And I guarantee you, in Google, you'll come up with tons and tons and tons of articles that explain some of the things that you could do to choose fonts well. That's what you really want to do. And once you learn all this stuff, you'll know how to do it in the future. That's what this is all about. Now, use custom design elements. Well, look, you have a limited amount of time here. So what it comes down to is, as the graphic designer, you have to make the best use of that limited amount of time. Come up with whatever design elements you can come up with within the scope of the time that you can devote to doing this project. Okay, I'm not trying to get you to go nuts and come up with all sorts of individual things. I'm looking for an overall idea, an overall thinking. That's what I'm looking to see. I'm looking to see how you put things together and how you coordinate your different projects so that when you look at them all, the story is told across all those projects. That's what I'm really looking for. So if it comes down to using pictures, I have no problem with pictures, because in reality, you would probably be supplied pictures to work from
usually you are,
yeah. So you would have pictures that they would be giving you, and you would be able to look through those pictures, and it's more in how you utilize them. That's what I'm with. And also how you handle things. Look right here, like your logo, the color scheme, and the general impression you are going for. See, to me, those are the important things, not to whether, everything's a custom design element. Because even what I'm getting at is, your pictures, even though you're taking them from the web to build this, in reality, the pictures wouldn't just be coming from the web. The pictures would be coming from the company. They would be
coming from Blue Mountain.
Yes, and they would be actual photos taken, and actual photos that would belong to them and would be more than appropriate for what you're doing. Now, we don't have any of that, so I'm saying to you,
actually,
you have
we
pictures,
do have pictures of Blue Mountain.
All right, well, if you have pictures of Blue Mountain, if you can get from those pictures what you think you need, then by all means use them. I would definitely.
There's even one that was taken, I think, in the mid 60s or 50s. It could have been later than that. That was given to the Historical Society from Blue Mountain.
Okay.
So yeah, I can find pictures of Blue Mountain.
That's good. Then that's what I would try to do first. If it turns out that there's 1 or 2 very specific things that you want to show, that you're not able to find that, really go back to Blue Mountain and feel free to use whatever whatever resources are available to you, including the internet. I'm not, again, I'm looking for the big picture. I'm not looking at the small. I'm not going to complain about photo unless the picture is ridiculous. I won't say a thing about it. If it's appropriate, I'm going to let you know it's appropriate. If it's not appropriate, I'll give you a reason or rationale for why it's not. All right.
You'll be like, I don't think that works.
Yeah. Well, no, I won't. Depends on the circumstance, but I'll be specific about it and kind.
You're always detailed and kind. Right. I thank you for
that. All
right.
right. So anyway, this is specifically talking about websites. So you have to put yourself beyond that a little bit, because it isn't just the website. We're talking about a continuing campaign, which is going to run through a course of time. And you're not necessarily building a website. You're going to be building an EPUB, an advertisement for online, and a poster.
I thought about doing a website, but to be honest, it would take too long.
Yeah, well, you don't have to do that. That's not, it's not part of the thing. So if you chose to do it, that's one thing. Otherwise, don't worry about it. All right, so what happened? All right, so having half the page, forget that. All right, have a consistent voice. This is one of the most important things that I was talking about before. You're going to be doing 4 different things. If those 4 different things were done by 4 different people, when they talk about a consistent voice, what they mean is essentially that by the time you get done looking at this piece, it should look as though one person did it. Now, you're one person doing it, so, you should be able to have no trouble doing that. But my point is, when we talk about a consistent voice, it's very important that your piece...
Everybody does it.
Yeah, you make sure that whatever you do, the 4 pieces coordinate. So it's a campaign. Yeah. So the campaign in your mind is the reopening, the grand reopening of
Blue Mountain.
There you go. So what you're going to do is you're going to coordinate your pieces so that it all speaks to that same message. Welcome to Blue Mountain, the reopening of Blue Mountain, however you want to put it. That's what this is all about. That, in this particular case, is your consistency of voice. If it were something a little different, like I was saying to you before, if you had 4 different people working on 4 different areas, you got a web designer designing a website. You got somebody who's essentially doing brochures for you. You got somebody who's doing, like premium stuff for you. You have somebody that's doing web advertising for you, or something to do with like, what do they call that? Or YouTube videos, for instance.
Yeah.
All these different things. Even if they're different people, they should all appear to be the same. That's the most important thing. And it even comes down to writers. The writers should understand the voice. In some of these branding manuals, now this Roto Style Guide is a very poor example, by the way, but it's the only one that I got as a PDF. So I show it just to give me something to show. But at any rate, the bottom line is, even when it comes down to what you write and how you write, and to be consistent with it. So it really is an in-depth kind of a thing. Create different versions of your logo. What they mean here now, this is where you got to be careful. What they mean is that a lot of times the logo will be used in slightly different ways. So if for instance, if it were going to be used against a very dark background, then perhaps the logo would be, and it all depends on the color that you're using, perhaps the logo might be all white. If it's going to be used in a newspaper advertisement that's just a black and white newspaper and not a color, then it has to be a black logo. If it's in a color newspaper, then of course it could be a color logo. See what I'm saying? That's what I think. That's what I'm talking about.
To the usage.
Yeah, let me see what they write here. You won't always have the same size and shape space for your logo, so make sure you're prepared with a logo that is horizontal and vertical version that can be scaled to look good at a variety of sizes. Well, you're not going to do that. You're just going to use what you got. Depending on the design, you might want a version that's black and white. Well, see, there you go. That's what I was just saying. As simply turning off the color can result in a muddy-looking mess of the logo. So basically what they're saying is just be aware of the fact that there will be different environments that you're going to be called on to incorporate elements into. So that's that one. And let me go to one more. Integration is the key to cohesive marketing strategy. Now, I chose this one and this one, it doesn't have a scroller on it. It's a real pain in the butt. So anyway, what they're talking about is how do you create a cohesive marketing strategy, okay? Consumers are permanently attached to their devices and suddenly high-powered computers right at their fingertips at all times. They're basically talking about, handheld devices. So you got to kind of put that out of your mind. And it isn't just mobile. It's across your entire brand, okay? So avoid a vacuum. Your mobile marketing strategy won't fare well if it isn't working hand in hand with other content platforms and campaigns. Well, forget the campaigns, but keep in mind that you are going to be working on items that relate to different platforms. A bus wrap, a web ad, a postcard, and an EPUB. All of these are different things. They're going to be seen differently. So, oh boy. That's John, the guy that I'm working on this project with.
Oh, Carino?
Just calling to let me know that they're taking a dinner break.
That's awesome.
All right, so look at your entire content. So forget about the multiple campaigns things, but basically make sure that you understand the nature of what you're creating. You're creating a wrap, and the wrap has to function as a wrap would. It wouldn't function the same way as a web ad would. It wouldn't function the same way as an EPUB would. All of these function differently. And what
Would a Facebook site count in the creation?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly would. You could include that as well, but keep in mind that each one has their own unique setting and their own unique use. So you have to be careful to make sure that your branding and your concept work in every way in balance or in proper relationship to the platform. So in other words, using the wrap for the bus, the way you promote, the way you approach that should be along the lines of something in the order of a billboard. Because again, this is something where people are going to look at this and, it's going to just go whizzing by them and they're not going to be able to stop them and stand there and focus on it. So keep that in mind. You be appropriate, but also stay consistent. There's a balance, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Now, in this particular case, it's telling you to listen, whoops, wrong way, listen to your audience. You're not going to be able to do that, but basically social listing is really going to help you to better understand your customer and leads are taken about when it comes to your brand product. You're not going to really be able to do that, but this is one of the points that they make. Increase your frequency, but focus on quality. Make sure that you do the very best that you can with your production, okay? I mean, first of all, you're spending money. You got to have something that looks really good, and it has to be really appropriate, and it should go to your audience. That's the most important thing for you there, okay?
Then you're spending other people's money.
Yeah, you're spending other people's money, but the bottom line is you're the designer, and it all falls back on your success, whether you get to spend any more of their money. You see what
Exactly.
Yeah, so what it comes down to is how well you do. How well you do by balancing all these things, by understanding your audience, and by understanding the media and what works on that particular media and what does not, is all that is going to make you successful with this. Also, what is the overall campaign about? I think in your campaign you've got something which is probably fairly easy because it is clear. I mean, you're basically announcing reopening. It's a great thing to do because it makes it in a certain way a little easier for you because now you know exactly how you're going to focus this thing,
Mm-hmm.
So maintain momentum. You're going to want to control your contact with users. Again, you're not going to get into this, but these are different marketing strategies. This turned out to be not so big deal. Social responsibility and ethics. I didn't really look at this, but one of the things that they are talking about is social responsibility and ethics in marketing. And I'm a very big one for that. I'm somebody who really thinks that you should be ethical. I really believe that's a good idea. If you're caught, let's put it this way, if you're caught being unethical in any way, shape, or form, one of two things are going to happen. You're either going to get hammered to the point where you're out of business, or you're going to end up spending a ton of money to correct the damage. And why waste that money, or why lose that position either way? It doesn't make any sense to me. It never has, and it never will. So always think in terms of ethics when you are working with this.
Yeah, that's a big thing that has to be always in mind. Because
yeah, see, be socially responsible when the organization is concerned about people, society, the environment, and whom and where it conducts business. This is really great for you because you are in a concern that deals with people and also the environment. I mean, the environment is what you're selling these people. That's a very important thing for you. And maybe that might be part of what you talk about is this is a wonderful, beautiful place that you should experience. There might be an interesting way for you to kind of focus the attention on, come to see what we got. It's been out of service for a while, and, you know, see what you've been missing.
It's upgraded and energy efficient.
Yep. So anyway, that's that. And let's see what else they say here. Ethical marketing in general. Okay, here we go. Ethical marketing is a philosophy that focuses on honesty, fairness, and responsibility, which I think are very good.
Yes.
Though wrong and right are subjective, a general set of guides can be put in place to ensure the company's intent is broadcasted and achieved. Principles of this practice include a shared standard of truth in marketing communications. I'm big for that. I think you should have set a standard for
Personally,
your
I
marketing.
think honesty is your best policy.
Right. A clear
That's
distinction between advertising and sensationalism. So you, in what you're doing, can play on sensationalism. And I don't have a problem if you do play on sensationalism, because you are, you are promoting a place which is, I suppose, a beautiful place. And that creates a sense of sensationalism, but keep the ethical in mind when you do it. You know what I mean? Balance it. Don't make it outrageously. Don't paint it greater than it is, but focus on the absolute best aspects of the place.
And that's not hard to do, because that place, I was sitting there thinking, if I ever got rich, I'd go buy it.
Yeah. So you have endorsements should be clear and transparent. That's something that you deal with in the future. In this particular case, we don't have that, and I'm not going to play like we do, so we shouldn't deal with it.
I wouldn't even try it.
Yeah. Consumers' privacy should be maintained at all places, at all times. I don't know what the situation was up there, whether they had a hotel there or not, but maybe you could talk.
They had a lodge.
They had a lodge. Okay, so what you would need to do is see what they could tell you about the lodge so that you could maybe paint a picture of the lodge for the people and what it might be like. And maybe they have pictures. I don't know. I haven't gone to the site yet. If you want to send me the link, you can send me the link and I'll go take a look at it and see what I think.
Yeah, I've got lots of different sites, because the whole area, there's this one major article about it, and it was like the ghosts of Blue Mountain.
What state is it in?
Utah.
Utah. Okay. All right.
It's near Monticello, Utah.
Okay. I'm not that familiar with Utah. I've never been there, and probably would be one of the places I'd like to go, but I've never gone there.
It's in the mountain range.
Okay. Also, keep in mind if there's any regulations that are important to be considered in this. I'm not sure that there would be in this particular kind of a marketing approach that you're going to be taking, but you never know. Keep it in mind. Consider it. It might be something that you might want to play off. I don't know. American ethical norms and values for marketers. Honesty. Are there 6 ethical values that marketers are expected to uphold? Now, there's probably some. Let's see what it says here. The American Marketing Association has designed a statement of ethics that governs marketers' action. The introduction of the statement reads, in summary, that values are representation of the collective idea of desirable and morally correct conduct. The values outlined in the document serve as a standard by which individuals measure their actions, and by those, including marketers. These values facilitate the best practices when transacting business with the public and all involved success. So it doesn't look like the government in any way is enforcing
involved.
specific laws about this. This is more along the line of something that is a kind of volunteer, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would think that anybody with a half a brain would be more than happy to participate in this because, then they could say that they do. But you never know. There are some people out there that are completely ruthless. Believe me, there are many of them.
Oh, yeah, they are.
Yeah, many of them. So anyway, again, honesty, be forthright in dealings of offers and values, or offer values and integrity. Responsibility, accept consequences of marketing practice and serve the needs of customers of all types, being good stewards of the environment. Again, this one somehow, to me, that suggests talking about the environment, and I don't know how you're going to play it. You'll have to think about that, but the environment, to me, could be something. It just seems like a buzzword that might work here. So you have to work that one out. Think about it. I'm not saying you have to, but I mean, what I'm thinking is
it makes sense, though.
Yeah, somehow I think you might want to consider that. Fairness, balance buyer needs and seller interests fairly and avoid manipulation in all forms while protecting the information of the consumers. Acknowledge basic human dignity of all people involved through efforts to communicate, understand, meet people, and appreciate contributions of others. So that would mean staff, which has not that much to do in your particular case. Create a spirit of openness in the practice of marketing to communication, constructive criticism, action, and disclosure. Well, it's a good thing to do. Citizenship. Fulfill all legal, economic, philanthropic, and social responsibilities to all stakeholders, as well as give back to the community and protect the ecological environment. I think this is probably a good one for you too.
Yeah.
Somehow or other work in that, you're committed to the community at large and
the environment.
The environment is, of primary interest or our primary goal to keep it whole and healthy. Canadian Marketing Code of Ethics and Standards and Practice. The Canadian Marketing Association also has a code of ethics and standards, which is a self-regulatory guideline for marketers. Though marketers are responsible for their marketing content, members of the MCA must abide by the code. So here now, I think this begins to enter into a more legal thing. I think it appears, at least through this comment, that if somebody were caught working outside this code, there might be some sort of
legal ramification.
Some kind of a legal issue that would come about. So, but it doesn't say that. So you know what I mean? It's implied. This is where this is one of these things that we're talking about, ethics. This kind of suggested thing makes you think that this code is but it may not be at all. You follow my thinking on this?
Yeah.
If there was something really there, they would spell it out clearly. Here it's simply that, members of the CMA must abide by the code. Or what? See my point? They must abide by it, or what? That, to me, is an incomplete thought, and I'm not entirely comfortable with it that way.
That's why I stick with the American.
Yeah. So anyway, the principles of this code include truthfulness, which is an accurate representation of product and support of claims made. And I'm always for truthfulness. I don't think people should paint things larger than life. I think what you need to do is, be truthful. Make it as large as it is. And more than likely, the place in certain aspects is very large. You know what I mean? It's very big. It's very exciting. It's wonderful. So, I mean, that if you're going to be painting a representation of the product, go from something that is true. Maybe this has got one of the best slopes in the area or in the state or in the region. You know what I'm saying? If that's the case, then that's what you paint because that's true, Yeah,
it was known for its slopes.
Then there you go. That's probably one of the things that you want to consider working into this. The fact that it's
that's one of the things I was going to hone in on.
Yep. Good. Now here, campaign limitations. This is what it says here. Campaign limitations cover non-involvement in disparaging or exploitative practices and the protection of vulnerable consumer groups such as children, teenagers, people with disabilities, and the elderly. Yeah, well, I understand that and all, and you may actually find some of these people showing up there. You might find children, teenagers, you definitely would find there, I'm thinking. I'm not sure. I would imagine that there are people with disabilities who ski.
As a matter of fact, I have a friend who is a Academy Award winning director and writer
Uh-huh.
who I've known him for like eons.
Right.
And he had a plane crash in 1991. He was flying a prototype.
Right.
So he's paralyzed from the waist down.
Oh, it's terrible.
But that boy snowboards, he skis.
Well, there you go. So you need to consider that. I mean, what exactly is your position on this? What's there for that?
I'm all for it, though. I can, put in things,
I'm thinking that maybe there are activities. You're going to have activities for children? Are you going to have specific activities for teenagers? Are there resources for disabilities? What type? Now, this might not appear in your wraps, your bus wraps. It may not appear in your app.
But it might in my EPUB.
That's right. That's exactly right. That's exactly what I was thinking. That's where you would find it, in the EPUB. The other elements, the other pieces that you'd be creating would not necessarily say very much regarding this. It would be more general, but when you get into the EPUB, that would definitely be a great thing for you to consider including into it.
Well, if you look at the fact sheet for Blue Mountain.
Yeah.
I'm pulling it up now. One of the things that it lists.
It's under assignment what?
It's under assignment, yeah.
Assignment 3?
Assignment 1.
Assignment 1. Hold on, let me go back to this.
These are downloadables.
Yeah, hold on. Give me a second. I'll go there too. If I can find the link for it. Where is it?
You put it in the announcements, babe.
I got it. No, I got it. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so assignment 3.
No, assignment 1.
Oh, it's in assignment 1. Sorry.
Yes, where we get all of our good stuff.
Here we go. All right, so here we go. What were you going to talk about?
Now, if you look at the fact sheet for Blue Mountain.
Okay, let me get down to it. Hold on.
It's in the zip file.
Company fact zip sheet?
Yep.
Okay. And, all right, so. All right, so I'm back. Hopefully you'll come back shortly. In the meantime, I'm just going to continue talking. So while ethics and social responsibility are sometimes used interchangeably, there is a difference between the two terms. Ethics tends to focus on individual or marketing group decisions, while social responsibility takes into consideration the total effect of marketing practices on society. In order to foster an ethical and socially responsible behavior pattern among marketers while achieving company objectives, special care must be taken to monitor trends and shifts in society's values and benefits. Next, marketers must forecast long-term effects of the decisions that pertain to those changes, bearing in mind that a company cannot satisfy the needs of an entire society. It best serves marketers to focus their most costly experts on their target markets. So there's a good justification for your target market. The truth of the matter is you're never going to get everybody. You're never going to find 100% of the pie. It's I think, pretty much virtually impossible. That's why it's very important for you to come up with a good, solid target audience. Consider very carefully who would benefit, who would utilize what it is that you're offering. One of the reasons that I asked you to extend your target audience slightly is because I thought it's the least you could do would be to consider a slightly wider slice of the pie. So that's, again, I think it's a very important point here. 5 simple steps every marketer can take to create a sustainably, socially responsible market plan are: define what is ethical marketing for your firm. Decide which branch of ethics your marketers will apply. determine how to ethically approach to marketing will be implemented. Discuss areas of the firm's operations that ethical marketing will be included as part of the program. Analyze and address or assess how much ethical marketing will cost the company and compare this against the benefits of ethical marketing in the long run. That's a great point. I mean, are you going to be suffering as a result of ethical marketing? I find it hard to imagine that you would, but you never know. Main aspects of socially responsible marketing. Socially conscious marketing addresses the shortcomings of traditional marketing practices and follows the philosophy of mindfulness and responsibility. This philosophy states that, according to Shran.com, that company marketing practices should be based on consumer satisfaction, innovative ideas, and offer society long-term values and benefits. This is a very important point for you, I think. Okay? What are you going to be able to do to offer consumer satisfaction? How are you going to deal with that? Obviously, once you have some customers back to Blue Mountain, you can start working from reviews of these customers. But what are you going to say to them that would urge them to come? What would make them feel that there would be some kind of a satisfaction for coming? What innovations are you going to employ or offer? That's another very important thing. Obviously, this site operated from the 50s up to the 70s, and then it closed. Something made it close. I'm not exactly sure what that is. You might try to find out what it was that caused the place to close, and then see what you could do or offer as a way of innovation that might make people want to come back, I guess is what I'm saying. Again, offering a society a long-term value and benefit. You know, what would that be? What are the innovations? What are the options? What are the things that offer consumer satisfaction? And, oh, you're good. I'm glad you came back. You seeing me now? Let me see.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you. Can you see my screen now?
Yes, I can.
Good. All right. I don't know what that was that happened. Some kind of a window popped open, but there was no way to close it. And I sat there trying to figure out how to close the thing, and there was nothing. There was no way I could close it. The only thing it looked like it gave me the option of doing was end the meeting, and then once I do that, what happens is the recording automatically processes. And I didn't want to interrupt that, because if I lost that, then I would have lost the whole first half of the recording.
And we can't have...
No, and then you would have had nothing to go back and look at later. You know what I mean? So,
Yep.
So anyway, I got it straightened out. What I'll do after I get done with this is I'll go in and I'll cut out the bad pieces and sort of patch the two pieces together and create a file and upload a file that way, and then you'll have one piece.
Yeah, I also unplugged my headset because it was bothering my head.
Uh-huh.
So I'm on regular mic and my speaker.
I can hear you fine.
Great.
I can hear you as much as I need to hear you. As long as I understand what you're saying, I'm good. So we're talking about, I just was talking about cleverism, you know, and, you know, basically we're talking about socially responsible practices. And I think I mentioned all this, so you should, you'll see what I was talking about: consumer satisfaction, innovation of ideas, law, and offer society long-term values and benefits. That's what I ended just where you came in, so I won't repeat it because you can actually go in and listen to it. Right. So you got consumer orientation. This socially responsible practice teaches that companies should base policies and operations on a consumer perspective. I think that's a great idea. I think, you know, how do you take your project and spin it from the consumer standpoint? You know, how can you be a consumer looking at yourself and saying, this is where I want to go? You understand what I'm trying to do here? Yeah. Turn the thing around a little bit, and it's not saying, hey, we're great, you should come here. You know, why would I not go there? See what I'm saying? You turn it around that way if you can do that.
I can try that.
I would just, you know, consider all these things in your plan. Not only will the marketer discover the customer's needs, and that's important here because there are needs, and obviously, there's very specific needs. So what would you think those needs would be? They want somewhere that's going to be beautiful, that's going to be, that'll offer them great activities. They probably want to stay in a really nice place and eat very.
They want something that's out of the way.
Yep, they want service. They want people to look after them and make them feel important and offer them everything that they could possibly, want, within reason. So,
Pampering experience.
Yep. As an example, an overcrowded website with lots of ads dumped onto it will be easily spotted if the marketers were to practice this method. Lots of ads dumped into it. So I guess ultimately what they're saying there is, you overcrowd a website, you've got a lot of ads in it. I'll tell you, the websites are, yeah, they're not really very good at that point. Innovation, improving products and services to innovate. Manner improves the experience of users. Okay, so what innovations are there? I don't know any of the answers to these questions, but I will tell you something interesting. Let me stop here for 1 second. One of the things that I want to talk to you about, I believe I put this already into one of my announcements, is what is known as the design document questionnaire. I mentioned this, I think, week 1. John, my boss, the person that I do this work for, I had him fill out one of these, and I think I showed you it week 1.
I did, and I do see the document itself. I've got my screen up.
Yeah.
Because you're on the same, oh no, you're on something different now. But yeah, you did put that in there, and I do need to download that.
Yeah, so what I did was, and this was not my original idea. This was done by somebody else, and I found out about it by going to someone's site, and they talked about it, and I started doing it. So whenever I get working with somebody who is like brand new, I always give them a copy of this design document questionnaire. I mean, I may tailor it a slight bit here and there to, make it a little bit more focused on a particular person and what kind of product or what kind of service or what kind of business. But it's basically the same thing. And it really asks the person who's filling it out, and usually that's the person who is highest up in the chain, questions about what they believe, the needs, the desires, the likes, the dislikes that they feel personally about. So this way I can get a sense of what they think as opposed to the company. Now, a lot of times what will happen is these people will become surrogates of the company anyway. They still will not come in 100% personal on things. They'll do it personal based on what they know the company requires. And why this is important and why this makes a lot of sense is you get a chance to get some input into their thinking. So, like, for instance, describe your company and the industry you're involved in. How does your company differ from others in the industry? What are your major concerns in your business and industry? Well, here's a person who either owns the business or is running the business in some fashion telling you this information. Yep. So you don't have to look for it anymore. You've got it. Now, you're not going to be able to do this, but since we're working on this kind of campaign coherence, this, in my mind, is one of the major elements of campaign coherence. That's why, I bring this to your attention, because it's something I definitely agree with, and I think I try to use it wherever possible. So what is the mission or purpose of the organization? State the mission statement. You have one. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Don't be surprised if I take that in my future.
Oh, can you turn the volume up and see whether I can hear you a little bit better?
Yeah, I can turn up. If not, I may have to put the headset back on. How's that?
Well, it's a little bit better.
Actually, what I need to do is find my mic.
That sounds pretty good. Well, anyway, do you have a mission statement? Most big companies have a mission statement, a brand statement. That's essentially kind of the same thing, Yeah. And as well as any additional information to assist me in understanding your business purpose. Now, again, if you had somebody that you could do this with, this would be a great way for you to gather information. Unfortunately, in this particular case, you do not. I don't want you to think, though, that I'm simply wasting time by showing you this. This is something that I definitely recommend, and we are talking about cohesiveness in a campaign. And what are some of the possible ways of doing that? One of them is by using a style guide, and one of them is by questionnaires. And this questionnaire, I think, will really give you a lot of input. Who are their main competitors? You may have an idea of who their main competitors are, but your idea might not be the exact same idea as what they have. They're involved in the business a lot longer than you. And they may feel differently about who the competitors are as opposed to you. So instead of taking it upon yourself to understand who these main competitors might be, you let them tell you. This way you now have people that you can go and look at and see what you can understand from their site or what information you can gain on them. Do they have similar projects? Do they do things in a similar way? Are you going to be competing with them? What do you think you're going to have to do to beat them if you compete with them? That's one of the most important things. If there are other places that are doing the same thing around you, you have to figure out a way that you can grasp the people away from them.
Yeah.
What do you like and dislike about their projects? Now, again, that within the context of what you would do with your own project helps you by eliminating some stuff. What do their projects have that you do or don't want in yours? You take a look at some of the things that they're doing, and is there any wasted information? One of the most important things for you to do when you're working on a campaign like this is to not waste space, not waste information. You have only a certain amount of space that you could utilize for information. You want to make sure that whatever you put in there is the best possible information that you can. So you got to watch out for stuff like that. And look at other people and be critical. That's the whole point. You're looking at the competitors. You're going to soon be competing with these people. What do you got to do to beat them? That's what it really comes down to.
Yeah, one of the things I do is when I get a design done,
yep,
I'll run it by my boyfriend.
That's another thing. That is a very good idea. What you do is show people who have no insight into the overall project whatsoever, and just get like a cold read from them, find out what they think about it. Because those people might be people that would come in contact with it somewhere else. So that's actually a very good idea that you do that.
Not only that, he actually likes to ski and stuff, so.
Yeah, but he's not the one that's involved in the project. Just make sure, though, that he's not patting you on the back because, he's your boyfriend. Make sure that he understands your goal is to get critique from him. They'll be, harsh if necessary, but honest,
Oh, trust me. Nathan is brutal. He is so brutal. He'll look at me and go, baby, that just doesn't look right.
Good.
I'll be like, why? Well, I think it needs this.
Mm-hmm.
And then it'll be like, well, why do you think it needs that? Because otherwise it doesn't seem cohesive to me, or it doesn't catch my attention.
All right.
And with him, he has Asperger's and ADHD. So if it catches his attention, I'm good.
Good. Excellent.
Because he's pretty, it's hard for him to have attention.
Great. Well, that's what you need. So here it says, what are the short-term goals of the project? Well, in your particular case, the short-term goals really are to try to reestablish the business as a viable entity. You're coming back on the market. It's something that was off the market for a period of time. And your goal, your short-term goal, is to reestablish it. What are the reasons for doing it? Because it's a gorgeous place, and it was too bad that it was mismanaged to the point. Now, you're obviously not going to come out and state it this way, but it was too bad it was mismanaged to the point, or the period of time was such that they couldn't afford to stay open with the lack of business that they had. That's
5 to 7 years with bad snows.
And hopefully with the new stuff that they have today, you could find a way to get some seasonal visits up there.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, they went 5 to 7 years with no snow.
Yeah.
Or not enough snow to even powder the mountain. And that's what killed the business, because the owners didn't want to wait out the winters. And back then, the fake snow technology the powder snow
Yeah.
wasn't as good as it is now.
Right.
So now would be a prime with the snows that they're getting in the Abajo Mountains and the Blue Mountain area. They could conceivably bring Blue Mountain back if they wanted to.
Good.
But their biggest competitor is Eagle Point, and it's a huge place.
Right. Well, there's something that you might be able to use. The fact that Eagle Point is such an overwhelmed place. I mean, there's so many people go to Eagle Point. You maybe want to come somewhere just as beautiful, but a lot quieter. You know, that could work for you. That could work for your advantage.
That was one of the angles that I was thinking about going with.
Also, what I'd like you to do is consider what do you see as your next goal? Let's assume that, your first goal is to reinstate this place, reintroduce this place. Well, once you feel you reach that point, let's say in the course of a year, what would be the next step? What would be your next projected move from there? What would you do then?
Keep the buzz going.
Huh?
Keep the buzz going,
Keep the buzz going, definitely. But what you would do is see if you could come up with some kind of a projected plan for that.
Okay.
What are the project's long-term goals? Now, remember, this is being given to a person who is about to work with you. So what he's telling you is here, what are his short-term goals? Now, when a person tells you what their short-term goals are, and he's the person that you're working with, you know exactly what to focus on. See what I'm saying?
Yeah. Try this for an idea.
Go ahead.
Get Nathan to play, quote, the executive for Blue Mountain. Get him in play.
You could have him do that.
Have him do a role play where he's the executive and he's going, okay, let's do this, this, and this.
Yeah, you could do that. That would be fine. And if you want to do that, if you would like to do that, then what you could do is, since I believe I've submitted to you a PDF of the questionnaire, if you want, you could have him. I don't know whether I think you could probably do this on. I think you could do it in Adobe Acrobat Pro. You could have him answer the questions in Acrobat Pro under Edit. Go to Tools. Let's see here. Edit PDF.
But he can do a Word document for me, and then I can put it in Acrobat.
There you go. Okay, that's what you could do. That's what you could do.
And say, hey, you're always telling me I'm an overachiever and you need to help. You like me doing my schoolwork, but you want to ask me when you want me to help me. Well, guess what? You get to play an executive. Now, get answering.
So that's definitely a good idea. I would do that, And
that way I'm not so blind and having to come up with fake stuff when I can,
This way you can actually see how this works.
Yeah. And then that would help me later on with my own design work when I come to my own clients in the future.
So then it also asks, what are your projected long-term goals? What are your future needs for a project 1 to 5 years from now? This is really where the person is thinking out of the box, because he has no idea where he really is going to be in 5 years. But he could give you an idea of where he would like to be in 1 to 5 years. See, all this is great information to have, because this way you have something that you can mark down and use as guides.
Not only that, you can incorporate it into the proposal that you're doing, because then you can say, okay, here's our projected goals afterwards.
Right.
This is where we want to be.
Right. Now, here's one that's kind of important. How will you measure the success of the project? So you may have, this is the thing that I want to say about this. You yourself may have an idea of how you would measure the success of the project. The question then is, how would he measure it? And does it match up with what you think? See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
And if you look at it from that standpoint, it may cause you to think slightly differently about your creative campaign development and, to try to achieve his goals, because that's ultimately what you want to do. And in any and every case, you would like to be able to achieve his goals, meet his goals.
You have to, because of the simple fact he's your client.
Yeah. Now, these are things that, you know, you're not going to really run into, and yet you are. I mean, you got 4 weeks to do all this stuff. So, I mean, but what are your schedule requirements and what are your reasons for that schedule? Basically, they'll give you an idea of how long you have to work on this. It's always good to have it in writing. You know what I mean? So basically what this guy will do now is he'll put down what he thinks he needs to do, and he'll give you a reason for it. So this way, if it comes down to where for one reason or another his scheduling falls out or your scheduling falls out, you know why that schedule was important, and you know whether it's going to be a big problem or a small problem. You see my point with that?
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why I'm saying these questions are actually pretty good questions. What is the projected budget? This is one that's very important because basically you're going to be working within a budget. And you have to know exactly what that budget is, and you have to be able to figure creatively, can I meet my goal of doing what I want to do within that budget? I mean, if you can't, you have to walk away from the project. If you can't, let's put it this way. If you can't work with his budget and he's not willing to work with you to amend the budget to a reasonable level, then you have to walk away from the project because you don't want to do something for nothing. You want to be able to get paid for what you do, and you want to have enough money to be able to do the job right. If you can't get the job done right, what's going to happen? The job will ultimately fail, and then it'll be your fault. See what I'm saying? Because he'll never look at himself and say, well, the reason it did fail is because I didn't give him enough budget. He failed because he couldn't do the job with what I gave him, which is kind of a stupid way of saying you failed, but it's kind of skirting the truth. The truth is he might not have supplied you with enough money to make this thing work. That's really what it comes down to. So that's why it's very important to get this information documented, and you should do it immediately. What is your budget maintaining your project? So, you know, again, if you have to reprint something, or if you have to add to a mailing list, or if you've decided that you're going to run this bus wrap for a longer period of time or create more postcards, you see my point?
Yeah.
What have you thought about what kind of money that you would be willing to put into this thing, say you start feeling comfortable with what you're seeing happening, you know?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah. What specific information you want to be sure to include in your project? Man, this one couldn't be clearer or more important. I mean, here you're giving the guy the ability to tell you right straight out what he thinks this project should say. That is golden. Because again, when a designer goes in there, you know, there's a lot of guesswork going on unless you are giving some specific criteria. Here is where you are asking for some very specific criteria. What do you want to see? And again, what would happen if you didn't ask this question? You would supply him with some creative, and he would basically at that point start tearing it apart, productively, of course, to try to tell you, this is what I want to see, this is what I need to see. But here, before you've even touched anything, a keyboard, or you've begun any kind of a creative process, you're asking for specifics about what the project should entail. And now you've got some real things that you could sit down and consider how to incorporate into your project.
Yep.
Do you have any specific graphics you wish to be included? More than likely, they will supply you with whatever you need. That means things like logos, things like specific graphics that are going to be required to be put into things, photos that they would like to use. And usually what that means is photos are generally looked at from the standpoint of what are the most current photos. There's always a library of photos available with companies when you're doing work, but generally speaking, what they will do is they will lead you to the current photos, because the current photos are most representative of the now, and that's what they're looking for. Now, of course, you can go back and use historical photos if you feel the historical photos would add context to your campaign. And that's very commonly done. So again, you know, what do you need? What do you need to see? Do you have any graphics that you specifically want to see? They will tell you how, and it may not be them saying the photos will be such and such. They may say see somebody for that information and give you a phone number. And then you go to that person and you can be supplied with what you need. So one way or the other, you'll get an answer which will give you something that you need to find out about this. Why will people view your project? What will they take away from it? This, again, is not you speaking. You're not answering this question.
No, he is.
Your client is. So, in other words, he's telling you why people should view your project. Why should they? What is it that would make them view that project? What should they take away from it? You see, you have to come up with these things. If you have somebody telling you what they want to have taken away from this particular thing, it actually makes it a lot easier for you to come up with what you need. It really, you'd be surprised. It really would. Going back to the audience, who are the intended audiences? And this, you know, it should be broad stroke. This isn't something that you want to focus on one specific group. You want to look at all possible groups, listing all possible groups. And then what you'll do is you'll go through a process of filtration where you'll filtrate the thing down to where you have the very specific group that you think are probably your best target audience. And then you would maybe focus towards them a little bit, keeping open the options for the other audiences. Who do you plan on using? Who do you plan on using or seeing your project? Well, again, that goes back to your target audience. What goals do you have for each of your intended audiences? What are the most important functions you wish to provide for each type of viewer? Again, this is him telling you these things. This is stuff that part of what your job is to figure out this stuff. But you're giving him the opportunity to tell you. He may turn around at this point and say, aren't you supposed to figure all this stuff out? Yes, I am, but it's also important to hear from you. If somebody were to say it, because I've had somebody say that to me at one time or another, you know, why are you making me answer all this stuff? Isn't this your job? Well, it is my job, but it's also your job. If you tell me the things that you want to do, it's going to put me in a better position to see to it that you achieve those goals. And that's a good answer for something like that. And I believe at that point, they would turn around and say, okay, I'll do it. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then, of course, what are the most important functions you wish to provide for each type of viewer? So that's where it comes down to focusing on what are the absolute best things about this place. What is it that this place does better than anything else for this group of people? There's your information. And this would be coming from the person who is, in your particular case, the organization that is taking over Blue Mountain. They're going to be opening this place up. They have something in mind. All of this is geared towards you picking their brain, you know?
Yep.
And then, of course, this may be a little redundant, but what kind of customers do you cater to? Please describe the type of customer. What services can you not provide now that your project will assist you with? So basically, what is this project going to do to add to what you already do as far as your service is concerned? That's essentially what we're talking about there. Where will your project content come from? Who will be preparing the text? What print materials do you presently have? Well, in your particular case, the materials are probably incredibly outdated if they exist at all, but you might want to find out who is actually going to be writing for this project. In this case, you're going to be doing the writing, but in the real world, you probably will not, because most of the time, graphic designers are not called upon to write text. They might contribute to a brainstorming session, but they generally do not get called on to write text. They usually have copywriters that do this sort of thing. Okay?
Yeah.
How often do you see your creative project being updated? My guess would be something, again, you have to decide that yourself. Is this a seasonal thing? Are you going to do this seasonally? If you're going to do something seasonally, then you have to keep in mind that through each season, until you reach a point where you've been in for a year, each one of these things are going to be an introduction to. So if you're going to introduce this Blue Mountain, you're introducing fall. Blue Mountain Fall, introducing Blue Mountain Summer, introducing Blue Mountain Spring, introducing Blue Mountain Winter. Now, that's not exactly how you have to write it, but you get the idea. You want to basically, yeah, okay? And then how do you plan to accomplish this in reality? If this project were a piece of magic, this is a great question too. If this project were a piece of magic where anything was possible, what would you like it to do? Now this question is great because what it tells you what this guy's aspirations and dreams are. Now you may never be able to accomplish these aspirations or dreams for him, but by knowing what they are, it gives you a little bit of power to see whether you can maybe make some part of that happen in some way with the advertisements that you create. And I think that's it. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Please rank in order of importance to you from 1 to 10. So in other words, now we've asked him a bunch of questions, and a lot of this stuff is actually in the questions above. What we're asking him to do is show us what is the most important thing to you. What is the second most important thing to you? And this will always be different with different people. So it's interesting to see what each person thinks the most important and what the least important thing is. In your own words, please tell me what part of this presentation went well and what parts of a presentation went well and what past came up short. What can I do to make your presentation better for you? So basically now you're asking for sort of an equation. Now, if you've worked on a project with him, you're asking him to judge your past work. If he's working with somebody else, what went wrong and what went well in that presentation? What did not? And then in his own words, what do you believe would make the presentation better? Okay? So this is the first thing. I show this because, again, the thing is campaign cohesiveness. So this is the first thing that I would be doing in terms of cohesive campaigning. Try to get information from the guy that will enable you to work within his mind, not just your mind, but now you're going to bring his mind into play. You're going to be bringing in thoughts and desires and needs that this person has and working with them as well as with your own. Now, I also told you I had this Roto style guide here, and you said that we worked on a style guide in one of the other classes, right?
No, actually, I did it with another instructor.
Okay, you do with another instructor. All right, well, at any rate, this is the Roto style guide. This is the style guide that was supplied to me and John by Roto Medical. That's the person that we're working on this project with. They're actually the people that create this implant right here. That's part of an implant, and that's their product. So basically what this style guide does, and it does it in, admittedly, a very poor way. It is not one of the better ones that I've ever seen. And the reason it's not so good is because it's too abrupt. It's too brief. It doesn't go into great enough detail. It doesn't set enough limits is what's really the problem with it. But with that being said, it's still better to have this than to have nothing. You know what I mean? Yep. So here, the table of contents, basically, again, the brand, logo usage, color, typography, photography, and samples. And I guess it looks like this thing is actually set up. Let me go to color. Nope, I was thinking that this thing had links that would take you to it. This thing doesn't have links. Mine will, but this one, you see the fingers? Yeah. There should be links there, but they're evidently not. All right, so I'm going to go to page 3 now. And here is the master brand. Oops. Oh, boy. The master brand, although Roto is a corporate logo, it is a secondary visual element used to represent the brand. The logo is intended for limited use, such as building signage, letterheads, and internal communications. So here's a very important thing. This is a particular logo that they use for signage, letterheads, and internal communications. This is not for the public. So this is just basically the way that the corporation identifies themselves. Then the primary brand, core product, this should be the primary visual identity element. It combines the Smile Lock product logo and the Roto tagline. This logo should be used on all external facing marketing materials such as website package, and you get the idea. So basically this is the brand look that the public sees. This is the corporate look. that basically corporate people see. That makes sense, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, if you were getting this, you would not be doing anything with this unless you're making some sort of a corporate in-house piece. Everything else would be this. Now,
Exactly.
the Smile Lock brand identity. The brand identity should communicate that Smile Lock by Roto is a modern and innovative brand that is on a mission to revitalize implant or revolutionize implant technology and become the dentist's first choice for restorative implant solutions. So you see, and again, the brand identity tells specifically what their goal is. That's their goal. The logo type and symbol. The Smile-like device is made out of a material developed in the 60s for the NASA program. What is incredible is how many different things have come from this NASA program. And they're really amazing. This inspired the design of the logo symbol. The logo symbol has both the shape of the Smile-Lock device and the space and shuttle landing pod. The arrow below it communicates both the action of locking in place and lifting off, which is what it does. It has this special way that it comes off and goes on, which is quite amazing. It actually does it with the use of heat. It's incredible. While the brand, and you'll actually see some of this in the video when I finally get it. When the brand is, while the brand is modern and high-tech, it is also simple and reliable. The logo typeface expresses this. The simple, clean lines and slightly rounded edges make it friendly and easy to read. So why I think it's important for me to show you this and to talk about this is because you're going to be creating around the brand a marketing identity that it's going to run for a year. So what I hope that you'll do is think about this. Think about the logo and what the logo makes you feel and what does it make you think. And when you think about that and when you see what you feel about it, what fonts would you use to support that thinking, that feeling? That's one of the things that I think is very important, that you coordinate the fonts in such a way that it works with your logo.
Yeah.
Free space to ensure adequate clarity and visual impact. The logo should always be surrounded by at least the amount of clear space shown in the diagram below. The rectangular box around the logo indicates the areas that should be kept clear of competing visual elements. In most cases, allowing more clear space than the diagram shows will enhance the presence of the logo. So really, in this particular case, they're showing you that they want one cap height of space around all these elements. Okay? Now, you should be able to come up with something when you're creating your pieces that allow for some space around it as well. And that's really what this is. X equals the X height of logo type. So in other words, that S right there will fit in that space right there. That S will fit in that space right there. That's essentially what that means. You know that, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, again, when you create with yours, try to think in terms of free space as well. Approved logo, and this is where I really want to get with you so that you could see what's going on here. The approved logo and logo mark. The logos are used in 3 colors: dark blue, turquoise blue, and white. What color to use is dependent upon the background color the logo is seen on. So now here you've got it against white. In white, they want you to use the 2-color version that includes the turquoise blue and the dark blue. On this one, where they've actually created a bar in the turquoise color, which, by the way, is a brand color. You see what they're doing here? They're utilizing the brand color in some other creative way, like maybe a bar or something. So when a logo gets placed over top of that, they want it to drop out to white. Now this one's interesting because what they do is, since it's over dark, the turquoise blue shows very well. So they will show the turquoise blue, but then they reverse the rest of it out from the dark blue to the white. And they do the same thing with the symbol alone. Okay?
I see that.
Trademarks. The Smile Lock mark and the Roto text should be accompanied by the appropriate symbol. Some countries have penalties for improper use of registration symbol. Ensure the corporate mark is used according to the rules below. So this is a registered trademark. Okay? I show you this because it's part of the guide, the style guide, and I just think it's important for you to have a sense of what this style guide means, because again, if picture 5 different people working on different projects and each one of us has this style guide. With this style guide, we should be able to literally come up with something that works almost like one person did it. That's really the goal of this whole thing. Yeah, so ensure that the circle R is clearly legible. Let's see what else they got here. Okay, inappropriate use. So here's where they start talking about some of the, and this is also very valuable because sometimes graphic designers take it upon themselves to do things, and they're trying to tell you basically not to do these things. So again, you know, just look. There, you got angles. It's wrong here. Don't change the color of the arrow accent. Don't change the orientation of the mark. Don't stretch. This I've seen many times by students. They submit artwork to me where things have been stretched or warped, distorted. And don't scale the objects separately. Keep them in proportion. Do not remove the arrow accent from the logo backup. The arrow accent, where's that? From the logo backup. I don't even see that. I don't know what they're talking about there. Do not change the color of the logo type unless, of course, it falls within this. That's the way it should be adjusted. Don't put layer effects on it. Don't outline it. And don't add roto at the bottom. Okay? Now, like I say, this may seem silly, but believe it or not, some designers have done these things. And
companies get really particular.
Well, if they give you the book, that they are being particular, and they will come and say to you, what, are you not reading the book? I mean, when I started working for Vonage, I worked for Vonage for 18 months as a contractor. The very first thing that they did was they sat me down, and I didn't even have a computer yet. They brought me the branding manual, and they said, your computer will be here in about 2 hours. Take a look at the branding manual. Just sit and get familiarized with the branding manual so that you know what you can and can't do. And I still have that branding manual. They let me keep it. I still have that manual, and I literally sat there and I read through it a number of times because I knew I was going to be creating stuff utilizing that branding manual. And I wanted to make sure that whatever I was doing was according to the branding manual. I didn't want them to come and complain about that. If they were going to complain about something, it wasn't going to be that. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Yeah. So, okay, so now here's where they've actually shown you some colors. These are some colors that you can utilize, and they show the full color and the tints that you can utilize. Okay? So this is something that, again, when I talk to you about coming up with colors, figure out what colors you want to use. You want to use tint of the primary colors, or do you want to go to cooler and come up with colors that complement the color? Since you don't have a guideline to follow, I'll allow you to set your own guideline, but come up with something good. Okay, now they talk a little bit more about color palette. This section covers the usage of Smilock brand colors, the print and web specifications, and some simple visual guides. The color profile was chosen to reflect a brand that is strong, trustworthy, and calming. The darker blue is the color of honesty, dependability, and loyalty. Now you see how they're using all this stuff? You've been through this a number of courses in this school, and they've talked to you about this, right? They've taught you about the color and what color means, right? You've been, so you can see that in the real world, they're really keen on these things. This isn't something that they just taught you because they thought it would be interesting. This is stuff that they're actually using to create a color palette. And notice that what they do here is they're showing you the percentages that you can use here. And they're also showing you, here are the brand colors. These are the primary brand colors. They're giving them to you in CMYK, RGB, and hexadecimal value. So with any one of those threes there, you should be able to do any kind of graphics that you want. You've got CMYK for any kind of color printing that you would want, RGB for any kind of web, and they even go so far as to give you the hex values too. So that's the kind of thing that, you know, you should know about. I think that's the end of it. All right, so that's the end of the Smilock guide, and I'm going to let you go for tonight. Do you have any questions, any final thoughts or any questions?
Not at the moment. You give me
Okay.
some good ideas that I can take and run.
All right. Do you think you'll be able to come tomorrow night?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, tomorrow night we'll go on talking about a little bit more of this stuff, and we'll talk a little bit more about storyboarding, because I believe what you're going to do if you're going to make a YouTube video is you're going to create a storyboard. Have you done one of them yet?
My first degree, my associate's degree,
Yep.
was in video production.
Oh, so you know how to do storyboard.
Storyboards, you know, girls' wheelhouse.
Good. Good.
Yeah, I've done storyboards before.
Great.
So we still talk about them because, you know,
No,
anytime
we will. Yeah, we definitely will. We'll talk about a number of things.
a new spin or two. So, and it's been a while since I've actually really truly done one. So.
All right. Well, let me stop